Welcome back. Professor P in session. We're moving on to chapter 5, primates past and present. So we're going to be going a little bit over a ton of different concepts. You can take out your concept sheets, follow along. Sometimes some of these terms are in different parts of that chapter, so I'll be hopping around, but I'll still be going about. It starts out with the Paleocene epoch. Paleocene epoch happened 65 million years ago with the start of the continental drift. All of this environmental stuff. Mountains are forming, clouds are coming down, rain, lakes are forming. All this stuff is happening 65 million years ago in the Paleocene epoch. Eocene epoch happens 55 million years ago. Oligocene epoch 34 million years ago. Miocene epoch 24 million years ago. And lots of stuff are going on, which we're going to get back to in a little bit. All right. So just sort of stick around and we're going to continue. All right. Let's start out with primates. What it's really talking about are sort of what were some of the first primates, what's going on with primates. Primates are a member of a biological order primate group. It contains all species commonly related to whether it's lemurs, monkeys, ape, which are non-human primates, and then human primates. We are part of that category as well. When you look at primates, primates are divided into two suborders, prosimians and anthropoids. Prosimians are pre-monkey. Those are what I just talked about, the lemurs, the lorises, sort of, these animals. We are not prosimians. Anthropoids are new world monkeys, old world monkeys, apes, gibbons, chimpanzees, humans. We're part of the anthropoids. Remember that. Mammals, when we talk about mammals, we're talking about us, but we're talking about warm-blooded, right? Animals that typically have hair or fur. One of the most important things also is they give birth to live young, and also typically females will have some type of lactation to give their young milk as well. So what are some of these physical sort of common primate traits? And there's a lot of them by mammals. One of them we talk about there, it's called omnivorous. That means they eat all kinds of foods. There's no discrimination, whether it's insects, whether it's fruits, whether it's seeds, whether it's meat. Omnivorous means you eat everything. All right. So I think I'm an omnivorous person because I don't really discriminate. I'm allergic to seafood. That's the only thing I can't eat. But everything else I like. So, and there's lots of things, right, that we're going to talk about with some of those physical features as well. The teeth. Our teeth reflects an omnivorous diet, right? The molars, the chewing teeth, our chewing apparatus as well. Prehensile hands. Prehensile hands are really a grasping hand. Think about it. You're going to grasp something. What's very important with that is the opposable thumbs. So an opposable thumb is a moving thumb. Imagine if we didn't have these thumbs and we only had the 4 fingers. The opposable thumb was really a big part of our evolution because we're able to do a lot of things with these hands and with these opposable thumbs, all right? That becomes very important to sort of understand. Another thing is quite important is our brain size. It's very unique to us. We have a very large brain, starting out with 1,300 cc's. We go 1,300 to 1,500 cc's in the brain. That becomes very important for us because we needed these big brains for something good. And that's why we actually give birth to actually big brain babies as well. They look sort of funky because they have a small body and these big old brains as well. All right, some of the social features. We are diurnal, which means we're active during the day. Some of you may be nocturnal, but we're talking about like thriving and survival is that we were made to be diurnal, active during the day, working during the day, doing all of this stuff, right? We have a very long dependency period, which means we stay home for a long amount of time. Sometimes you go to college and come back, and you can come back home, and we talk about how many of you are still living at home. You could raise your hand in your room. That is a long dependency period, right? So we as humans stay with our young for quite a long time. All right. Play is very crucial in our development as well because that's how we teach our young a lot of things about life, right? Even when we look at historical hunting and gathering societies, hunting and gathering was part of the play, right? Using a bow and arrow, right? All these kinds of things. A lot of our physical traits, we're bipedal as humans, which means we walk upright, right? Historically, and even with non-human primates, they're arboreal, which means they're tree living. Why was it we didn't adapt to that? Because it would be very slow. We don't even have the hands, right? Those big old hands and the grasping feet. We don't have that, right? So we're bipedal. There's a lot of pros and cons with bipedality, but that means we walk upright. That becomes very important. And we're going to talk about some of those advantages, right, in a minute. Remember, we talked about cc's in the brain. We have a very large brain, 1,300 to 1,500 cc's, and we have that large brain because it taught us to do a lot of stuff. If you turn the page over, language, we are unique. All species communicate. They don't all have a verbal language like we do. That's how we transmit culture very quickly, right, to our young. So that becomes quite important, and within that, it's also the using of tools, right? It's also the sexuality and the female-male bonding system. That becomes very important to sort of understand when we talk about these kinds of things. All right, let's get back to, what favored, right, all of this stuff. Why? We get back to sort of the Paleocene epoch that happened 65 million years ago with the continental drift. We had a lot of major environmental things happening. A lot of people say, well, a lot of species didn't continue to exist after that because they couldn't exist with these rapid changes in the environment, right? During the Paleocene epoch 65 million years ago. It becomes important to understand with the continental drift, we had major geographic fluctuations. We had major differences in climate, right? There was lots of stuff going on, all right, with that. During that time, during the Paleocene, they believe archaic primates existed that were sort of squirrel-like. So that was sort of the beginning of the emergence of primates at that time. Eocene happened 55 million years ago, and with the Eocene epoch, that becomes important because what they're really talking about is two groups exist in the Eocene, the Ommiids and the Adipids. Ommiids were no bigger than a squirrel. Adipids were sort of cat-like and lemur-like. And you guys could look at some of those characteristics in the book. I'm not going to test you on them, but it's really good to know just the groups. Oligocene was another one. There was two types of Oligocene anthropoids, paraplithicids and proleoplithicids. Paraplithicids were monkey-like. Proleoplithicids were ape-like. All right. Let's move on to the Miocene epoch. Miocene epoch, we're looking at 24 million to 5 million years ago, and we're looking at whether it was the proto-ape, but we're looking at Kenyapithecus. Kenyapithecus, within that group, we're looking at, resembling modern sort of hominoids and things like that. Civoplithicids were quite interesting because civoplithicids were related to something you guys are all fascinated with, Gigantopithecus. The Sasquatch, the Yeti. It did exist in the past. The question is, do you believe it exists today? So Civoplithecus was cousin to the Gigantopithecus. The other group there was Diroplithicids. Diroplithicids were sort of chimp-like, lived in the forest. And that's basically sort of what you sort of need to know about sort of the emergence of primates. I hope you guys had a fun time. I hope I made it as fun as possible. Remember, you're an anthropoid, you're a primate, you're a mammal. See you soon.